On this edition of Southern Newsweek, New Zealand is joining its fellow Commonwealth countries in mourning the death of Her Royal Majesty. No more red lights. The COVID-19 traffic light system is gone, along with the mask mandates. And Christchurch's Orana Park is welcoming some sharp-toothed endangered animals. Kia ora, good evening. I'm Hannah Wilkins. The city, country and the entire Commonwealth is in mourning after the sudden death of Her Royal Highness Queen Elizabeth II. New Zealanders woke to hear the news of her passing.
The Queen is dead, long live the King. Words many broadcasters never thought they'd write or say until this morning. Queen Elizabeth II died peacefully in her sleep at Balmoral. Her death comes 70 years after she first ascended to the British throne in 1952. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern among the world leaders expressing condolences to the royal family.
I know I speak for all New Zealanders in conveying our deepest sympathy to members of the royal family and condolences to King Charles III on behalf of the government and New Zealanders at this time of enormous loss.
Flags on civic buildings flew at half-mast around the country as a sign of respect for the Queen's passing. New Zealand monarchists and royal watchers say Her Royal Highness was a great leader for the Commonwealth.
I felt last night that the Queen was dying. Her hand with the bruise showed that she was in a precarious state.
Her Majesty the Queen was a towering presence within the Anglican Church worldwide and of course throughout the Commonwealth.
In Invercargill, Mayor Tim Shadbot laid a wreath at the city's Botanic Gardens, and condolence books have been opened at civic centres and libraries across the country. Dunedin Mayor Aaron Hawkins among local leaders paying their respects to the late monarch.
Queen Elizabeth II, the only head of state I and indeed many of us have ever known, and that's certainly a significant day here in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Mayor Hawkins says Her Majesty's passing is incredibly sad and surreal news to wake up to this morning. Queen Elizabeth II will lie in state over the next 4 days. After that, King Charles III, the wider family and dignitaries will pay their respects before the doors of Westminster Hall will open to hundreds of thousands of people queued up outside. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Progress for the new Dunedin hospital build is looking solid. The first load of concrete has been poured, marking another milestone for the hospital, but there's still more work to be done.
Forming the foundation of the new hospital, contractors are filling 78 of these steel casings with concrete, creating the base for the new Dunedin Hospital outpatient building. The workers have spent the last 2 to 3 months driving the casings into the site.
A pretty exciting day here, a bit of a milestone as we start to pour the first of the concrete foundations for the new Dunedin Hospital. We expect to pour somewhere around 700 cubes of concrete into the 78 steel tube casings that we've driven.
Dunedin Mayor Aaron Hawkins has written to Health Minister Andrew Little, seeking assurances around the hospital build. During her visit to Dunedin, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern says supply constraints are affecting the hospital build like other projects around the world.
Everyone is looking at whether or not they're managing to stay within budget or in time frames because of the supply constraints we've had. So that's not unique to this project or to New Zealand.
Contractors are continuing to work on the foundations over the coming weeks. In Dunedin, the South Today.
It's lights out for the country's COVID traffic light system. Set up in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's been renewed or amended by the government every 3 months since then. Now the Prime Minister has announced the end of the lights and the end of mask wearing in most situations.
It's official. The traffic light system of COVID-19 response is getting the final red light. The PM this afternoon confirming the government will drop its long-term traffic light system to control the various rules and regulations around managing COVID-19.
Cabinet has concluded that from midnight tonight, we will remove the COVID-19 protection framework, or the traffic light system, and make a number of other changes to our settings.
The COVID-19 protection framework has been in place since the start of the pandemic in March 2020. Initially with a level system, before the country moved into a less restrictive traffic light regime. This ends at midnight on Monday, which Jacinda Ardern says was a milestone in the country's response. It'll mean masks will no longer be required to be worn, apart from in healthcare and aged care facilities.
We do not want to ask more of you than the evidence tells us we should. That does not mean you shouldn't wear a mask or judge others who do, so please do respect those who choose to wear masks.
The sweeping policy shifts also changed the rule that people should only isolate at home if they have COVID themselves, but not if someone in their household has it. All vaccine mandates will also end from September the 26th. The Prime Minister says the nation can now look forward to a summer of great content, with the discontent of what if now gone. She says it's now time for the nation to heal. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Otago meteorite hunters have been back out in Middlemarch, continuing their search for space debris. Fireballs Aotearoa are combing the hilly paddocks, hoping to be the first to find the huge discovery.
Still searching for the fireball that fell to Earth recently. Fireballs Aotearoa members and volunteers are keeping their eyes on the ground, hoping to recover freshly fallen asteroid fragments. The group filmed the meteoroid breaking up in the atmosphere on the 28th of August, thanks to night sky fireball tracking cameras. They're optimistic there's enough of the space debris left intact from when it landed somewhere west of Dunedin near Middlemarch.
So yeah, that means there's more chance of there being material that survived its ablation by the atmosphere all the way to the surface. But we don't know for sure. We have the modelling, and we can trust what the modelling says and then go and see what the ground tells us.
However, the group knows it's no small feat finding the meteorite.
It's a very small piece of metallic material, or potentially of more rocky material, and it is somewhere in a very large field.
Fireballs Aotearoa are continuing their search for the meteorite, which they say would be a huge discovery. In Middlemarch, the South Today.
There's been some feisty new arrivals at Christchurch's Orana Park, with the arrival of 5 new Tasmanian devils. The endangered animals were transferred as part of an international ambassador program to save the Tasmanian devils.
Pendlebury, Chester Campbell, Steele, Fox and John, exploring their new home at Christchurch's Orana Park. These 5 endangered Tasmanian devils were transferred to the wildlife park as part of the Save the Tasmanian Devil Ambassador program. The new arrivals mean Orana Park is home to one of the largest group of carnivorous marsupials outside of Australia.
They are part of the Save the Tasmanian Devil program, which is really important. They are ambassadors for the program, which is why we've partnered with the program here in New Zealand, so we can educate people about their plight.
The Aussie arrivals were welcomed to Orana Park last week, almost doubling their devil population to 9.
They are very cheeky, wee animals, very, very inquisitive, and I'm sure that visitors will love really enjoying them, just seeing running around the exhibit, interacting with each other, and now that we have 9, they've got plenty to see.
Tasmanian devils are famous for their loud screeches. The first European settlers who heard their mysterious and unearthly screams believed them to be evil spirits sent by the devil. But in reality, those frightening screeches are actually the creature's defence response, triggered by fear and uncertainty.
Really excited to have them here, great animal to work with, very popular with our team.
Visitors to Orana Park will be able to meet the new inquisitive devils this week. In Christchurch, the South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, Ashburton's new library and civic centre is coming along nicely, and one man's spent 900 hours restoring an old musical instrument. See you after the break. Tēnā koe, welcome back. The new Ashburton Library and Civic Centre is taking shape. Ashburton District Council gave a tour of the construction site recently, showcasing what will be in store for locals when it's complete.
Walking around what's soon to be Ashburton's new library. Progress on the Library and Civic Centre is heading in the right direction, according to Ashburton District Council. The council's giving a tour of the 3-storey building, with its construction coming along nicely.
It's coming along really well. We're about halfway through the build. It's so exciting. The space is going to be absolutely wonderful. We're standing where you'll be able to get a coffee and borrow a book, and the rest of the building's starting to take shape. So we're really excited about where we're at.
The new library is combining with the historic Pioneer Hall building, its design reflecting a modern library. The council says there'll be plenty of books for readers, but the building's focus will be around creating a community hub. The $56 million build will be finished in October 2023 if everything stays on track. In Ashburton, the South Today.
More than 90 groups came to Dunedin's Edgar Centre to showcase their culture. The annual Piefest event has been impacted by COVID-19 restrictions in recent years, but this year it went ahead in full force.
Celebrating the Pacific's colourful cultures. The 29th Otago Piefest began yesterday and is being held during Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, or Māori Language Week. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the petition presented to Parliament supporting the teaching of Te Reo Māori in schools. During today's session at the Edgar Centre, the group from Fairfield School chose the classic tune Tu Te Mai Ngā Iwi. Organisers say Otago Piefest is an excellent opportunity for children, young people and whānau to participate in Māori and Pacific cultural experiences. They say taking part in or attending the festival broadens and celebrates the youngsters' individual and collective cultural identities. Otago Piefest is running until Friday. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A Dunedin piano restorer has spent several months bringing an old piano back to life again. This is the second restoration for the old grand, as it had to be restored back in the 1950s after being found abandoned in a North Island barn.
Brought back to life for a second time. This piano, dating back to 1885, has been completely renovated by Dunedin piano restorer Adrian Mann. However, it's actually the old keyboard's second major restoration. The piano's first renovation happened after it was found abandoned in a barn in the 1950s.
It was propped up on its side and it didn't have any legs because I think that borer, fallen to pieces, and they bought it and decided that they would have it as a sandpit for their kids because he liked the shape of it. And after inspecting the inside, seeing these medallion bronze plates, he decided that maybe it's worth doing up.
The 137-year-old piano turned out to be an Eibach, which are used in some of Europe's top concert halls. Mann has spent the last few months giving the old grand its second overhaul, replacing the bridge cap, hammers, action and even ivory keys. He originally intended to sell the piano, but has fallen in love with it currently vying for his attention over another keyboard of his. This self-built monster, which at nearly 6 metres, is the largest piano in the world.
There's a lot of wonderful pianos in the shop, but I'm always drawn to this one now, and even after the big one I feel a little bit guilty because I really like playing this.
Mann is now making the piano available for hire. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Otago University researchers are trying to understand why power stocks are depleting. The team are hoping to find the answer to help repopulate the dwindling shellfish.
On the hunt for a precious resource, University of Otago researchers use snorkels to seek power populations along the eastern coast. They are working on a project to understand how to increase the stock of power in the East Otago tapiri, with the project having 3 main components.
We're monitoring power stocks in the area. We're looking at stock enhancement, particularly reseeding and translocation of power. And then we're also looking at strategies for potentially reopening the power fishery in this area.
The team is looking for healthy adult stock that can be used to increase power numbers, which may allow sustainable fishing in the future. While past overfishing has affected power numbers, the team is also investigating climate change factors, including increased sedimentation.
Power don't particularly like a lot of sediment, so that's also going to have a negative effect on their populations. Poaching is an issue too for power stocks around the country, and so I guess that's something that also needs to be carefully monitored.
Dr. Jana Lingham says the help of the local community has been important.
We want people to look after what's in their backyard, and also to acknowledge, I guess, the sacrifice that the community has made by closing the power fishery, that they've lost access to something that is so valuable to them. And so if we are at some point in the future able to reopen this fishery, I mean, that would be an amazing thing.
The project is ongoing and is funded by Coastal People Southern Skies, a centre of research excellence based at the University of Otago. In Karatane, the South Today.
Hundreds of Cantabrians have flocked to the Arts Centre to view works by a number of prominent New Zealand artists. The event was the annual Sculpture Festival, which showcased jewellery, ceramics and Uwamaru stone sculptures.
Mallets, chisels and stone featured among the artworks at this year's Sculpture Festival in Christchurch. Works by a number of well-known and emerging New Zealand artists are on display at the Arts Centre. Among them is sculptor Ruth Colibrium, who says she finds her inspiration in the stone.
The stone has a beauty all of its own, and all you're doing is taking away material for it to become a form that is pleasing. And as long as it's pleasing to me, then I'm happy.
Around 40 artists exhibited their work, a record for the festival, with more than 300 pieces for sale. The first festival was held at the Arts Centre 3 years ago, with interest steadily increasing since then.
I want the challenge, to have a challenge, and that's also when we decide some kind of exhibition, but something slightly different from the others.
The success of this year's festival has a team already dreaming bigger and better for the 2023 event. The Sculpture Festival continues every day until Friday the 16th of September. In Christchurch, the South Today.
Still to come on this edition of Southern Newsweek, a Dunedin developer is adapting their game for Te Wiki Aotearoa Māori, and hundreds of competitors brace the wins for this year's Dunedin Emersons Marathon. We'll see you soon. Tēnā koe, welcome back. A Dunedin video game developer has added Te Reo Māori translation to a mindfulness game celebrating Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori. The head of Tech Naturally Games has been learning the language during the game's development and is hoping his players will follow suit.
Learning Te Reo Māori through his touchscreen game. Tech Naturally Games' John Galanders is helping others learn Te Reo Māori through his game Colibrium. Galanders has been learning Te Reo and thought it fitting to release a Māori language component to his game, making it multilingual.
I felt it was really important to get it into Te Reo Māori primarily and then put it in other languages as well. So it has some Japanese, Chinese and Spanish translation with it too, but because Te Reo Māori is our taonga here in Aotearoa, I felt that that's really important to get that out first.
Colibrium was released in 2016. The family-friendly game has players blending and matching colours as part of a mindfulness experience. Galanders had the help of an officially certified Māori translator based in Northland, and he's also keen to translate Te Reo further into the Southern Kaitahu dialect. In Dunedin, the South Today.
50 years of the People's Republic of China was celebrated in Dunedin. Dancers from many Southern Asian cultures took part in a mid-spring festival with a host of dignitaries celebrating the event.
From a local Southern Kapa haka group to traditional Chinese dancers, Pacific cultures were celebrated during the Chinese Mid-Season Festival in Dunedin at the weekend. Chinese Consul General He Ying was on hand, marking the occasion.
We are one family, so I'd like to take the opportunity to send my best wishes to the Chinese communities and all the friends present today.
Dunedin Chinese community representative Hu Zhang says Saturday was a perfect day to hold the event, as the moon was full at night and the sun out during the day.
Yeah, today we celebrate Chinese Moon Festival and also, upcoming China National Day. The Chinese community gather here to celebrate.
Dancers and traditional musicians from many parts of Southeast Asia shared customary performances. Dunedin Mayor Aaron Hawkins says Otago has a rich history with people from China settling in the area.
Back to the gold rush and the families that have lived here since then have really contributed to the civic life of this city, and it's really great to be able to celebrate alongside our newer migrant families.
Traditionally, the full moon in the middle of this season is a time for reunions and to give thanks. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Runners braced strong winds last weekend as they put one foot in front of the other for the Emersons Marathon. The return of the event attracted hundreds of competitors, but only one person can claim the top spot.
Back in full force after a 2-year break. Hundreds of competitors ran, jogged or walked their way through the full or half marathon yesterday. It's the first year the marathon has been run under the banner of the Emersons Marathon, but the change in name didn't affect the turnout. Serious and recreational athletes took part on Sunday, with ultramarathon runner Glenn Sutton choosing to run the event while wearing a giant homemade beer can costume. Defending champion Jonas Smith retained his title, walking away with back-to-back wins in a time of 2 hours and 42 minutes, 1 minute quicker than the runner-up. 4 marathon runners kicked things off at the Portobello Domain, with the half-marathon competitors racing around the Caledonian ground, with both groups ending their run at Emersons Brewery. The marathon's been put on hold for the past 2 years due to COVID-19, but the chance to compete once again was welcomed by local runners. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Elite athletes showed their big air skills and park jam style at this year's Winter Games. The big air competition at Codrona attracts plenty of skiers and snowboarders eager to push their boundaries.
A strong lineup of international competitors were flying high at the weekend as the Winter Games wrapped up near Wanaka. Canadian Max Moffat took out the men's ski event and says the Stomp series is an excellent way to promote the sport.
I love the sort of switch up and the creativity aspect, and I think that's sort of what snowboarding and free skiing was sort of built off of, so I think it's the best way to push the sport, honestly.
Saturday's conditions were perfect, and a field including world champions and Olympic Games medalists made the most of them. Moffat took out the top spot, but local Kiwi stars Finn Billis and Jackson Wells claimed the second and third podium positions.
I had a couple of tricks I wanted to lay down and managed to do all of that, and to come away with the podium is amazing.
It was cool with the technical aspect and then the style stuff. It was nice to be able to do some slower spins, feel a little bit safer in the air, but also fun to get a bit spinny.
The big air competitors took 4 laps on the jump and were given a combined score for their best style trick and best technical trick. Meanwhile, Japanese competitors managed to claim the majority of the medals across the men's and women's snowboard events. Miyabi Onitsuka pleased to win the women's competition, but had wanted to do more.
I wanted to try back double 12, but I couldn't land the front double 10, so I couldn't.
Mari Fukada was second in the women's snowboard, with New Zealand's Cool Wakushima in third. At Cardrona, the South Today.
3 years ago, the government committed nearly $4 million as a tourism support package for Fox Glacier on the west coast. $500,000 of that went towards a well-constructed but rarely walked track to Lake Gold.
This beautifully gravelled pathway through the west coast forest near Fox Glacier was recently upgraded and reopened after decades of neglect. 3 years ago, Fox Glacier's tourism business suffered a major setback when a large landslide permanently blocked the access road to the glacier. In response, the government has spent nearly $4 million from its tourist levy fund for upgrading tracks in the area to lure tourists back to Fox Glacier. It cost just $500,000 for contractors to create this high-quality 3-hour return track to Lake Galt. However, many tourists choose instead to do a similar but far quicker walk nearby at Lake Matheson.
We just decided not to do it today because we thought, save time.
The Department of Conservation is eventually planning to more actively promote the walk to Lake Galt, and local Fox Glacier guide Marius Bron says it's great to have an asset for days when weather prevents planes from landing on the glacier.
I think it's part of the wider package of the area. And I think it's a great thing to support glacier tourism with other local activities. So when there's really trouble things happening up the valleys, then we've got alternate activities.
In Fox Glacier, the South Today.
That wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news and videos from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on YouTube to catch our news bulletins on demand. We'll see you again next week. Mā te wā.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.